A special transmission outside the scriptures, no dependence upon words and letters, direct pointing to the soul of man, seeing into one's nature and the attainment of Buddhahood. Enlightenment, or Satori, as it is called in Zen Buddhism, is the attainment of a completely new, deeper way of perceiving reality. It is the looking into, the complete comprehension of the fundamental nature of existence. It has many names, such as the opening of the mind flower, the removing of the bar, or the brightening up of the mind works. It is also called the remaking of life itself. The attainment of this fascinating experience has the power to make one completely free of all suffering, as well as provide complete psychological fulfillment. It brings forth the true nature of things, in which all life's opposites, yes and no, good and evil, are all united in one supreme reality. But that is only what it does from the logical point of view. The true nature and real experience of enlightenment cannot possibly be expressed in words. It is a great mystery and a great difficulty for all that wish to inquire into the world of Zen. But it is the only way that it makes sense. If something can be fully explained and understood by our logical mind, which has its limits, that thing would also have to have limits. But Satori is something far beyond what our intellect offers. Satori is the most intimate individual experience, and therefore cannot be expressed in words or described in any manner. All that one can do in the way of communicating the experience to others is to suggest or indicate, and this only tentatively. You may say, if Satori cannot be understood intellectually, then how are people able to have that realization? What tool is used to grasp that infinite truth? The answer to that is every tool, a man's whole body and mind, all elements of his psyche, the conscious as well as the unconscious, a man's whole personality and spirit. But to better explain how exactly that's even possible, let's look at an example. Te of Mengshan tells the following story of his experience. When I was 20 years old, I became acquainted with Zen, and before I was 32, I had visited 17 or 18 Zen masters, asking them as to their method of discipline, but none were able to enlighten me on the most important point. When later I came to the master Huanshan, he told me to see into the meaning of this koan. A monk once asked Chao Chu, "Has a dog the Buddha nature?" To which the master answered, "Wu," which means nothingness, and added, "Be vigilant over your Wu through all the periods of the day, as constantly vigilant as a cat is when she tries to catch a rat, or as a hen is while sitting on the eggs. As long as you have yet no insight, be like a rat gnawing at the coffin wood, and never lose belief in your effort. As you go on with your task like that, the time will surely come when your mind will become enlightened." After that, Te applied himself to the master's instructions. After some time passed, he got really sick, and he thought he was going to die. No energy was left in me. Whatever understanding of Zen I had, all failed to support me. The tongue refused to speak, the body to move. All that remained was to greet death. But still, he didn't give up. He followed the master's instruction and focused all of his effort on seeing into the meaning of Wu. After which something unusual happened. It was after some time that my eyelids became rigid and refused to blink, and later on I became unconscious of my own body. The Wu alone occupied my consciousness. In the evening I arose from my seat and found that I was half cured of the disease. I sat down again until the small hours of the morning, when the physical disorder completely disappeared. I was myself again, well and in good spirits. Following the recovery, Te went to the monastery and became a monk. He still continued to focus all of his effort on the Wu while at the monastery. Several months have passed. The monk had been through many travels and he had done much physical work while holding the Wu in his mind, until one day the revelation came to him. On the 6th of the 3rd month, I was holding Wu in my mind, as usual, while sitting on the cushion, when the head monk came into the meditation hall. Accidentally, he dropped the incense box on the floor, making a noise. This at once opened my mind to a new spiritual vista, and with a cry I obtained a glimpse into my inner being. There are many such stories and records of monks attaining enlightenment. Nonetheless, in all of them we can find similarities and elements that repeat themselves, and from them deduce how exactly the state of enlightenment is achieved. First off, a student is given a koan. Koans are short sayings made by Zen masters. In this case, the koan was: a monk once asked Chao Chu, "Has a dog the Buddha nature?" To which the master answered, "Wu." The aim of a koan is to break the student's mind free from the bondage of logical thinking. That's exactly why the koan makes no logical sense. This is crucial as Zen yogins have realized that in order to grasp the true nature of things, the intellect is not enough. As D.T. Suzuki writes, the intellect is not final. It waits for something higher than itself for the solution of all the questions it will raise, regardless of consequences. If it were able to bring a new order into the disturbance and settle it once for all, there would have been no need for philosophy after it had been first systematized by a great thinker, by an Aristotle or by a Hegel. But the history of thought proves that each new structure raised by a man of extraordinary intellect is sure to be pulled down by the succeeding ones." End quote. So, the koans are made specifically to keep the intellect at bay and bring forth the most fundamental and most profound, subconscious, deeply buried elements of the human psyche. Zen Buddhism treats the reasoning faculty as an artificial part of ourselves that needs to be done away with, or at the very least, put aside if satori is to be achieved. Another aim of a koan is to create a psychological state of frustration, tension, and desperation in the mind of the apprentice. This state of mind is a recurring theme in all stories of people achieving enlightenment. It is an exceedingly intense longing for a solution to the problem of life. The desperation is like a bubble that builds up, and when it pops, the state of satori is achieved. If you are familiar with the story of Siddhartha Gautama, all throughout his journey he can be said to have been desperate, trying any and every technique and practice in order to realize the true nature of reality. But just a short saying all by itself cannot possibly get a man into a state of such psychological anguish as needed for satori. The true desperation and longing comes from the person itself, the phenomena of one's feeling of hopelessness, and thus longing for an ultimate solution to the riddle of life, is called the great spirit of inquiry. It is the will to know the truth. It is also the overwhelming belief that there must be something out there, presumably a better, higher, more profound state of being. That will, that spirit, is what enables all the foundations of one's personal character be focused and determined to their fullest extent in order to solve the koan. When focusing on the koan, and thus coming closer to enlightenment, one's mind starts transforming. A state of oneness of thought starts to prevail. All of the faculties of the body and mind are in a state of utter fixation on the koan and its meaning. As Tianqi Shui, a famous Zen master from the time of the Ming dynasty, says, "The time will come to you, without your specially seeking it, when the mind attains a state of perfect concentration. That is to say, when you are sitting, you are not conscious of the fact. So, with your walking, or lying, or standing, you are not at all conscious of what you are doing, nor are you aware of your whereabouts, east or west, south or north. You forget that you are in possession of the six senses. The day is like the night, and vice versa. But this is still midway to satori, and surely not satori itself." End quote. From this quote, we see that satori is strikingly similar to the psychological state of flow. The flow state is a state in which it is as if the thing a person is doing happens all by itself. The body and the mind move by themselves with no effort on the part of the doer. Enlightenment, or at least the state preceding it, is a constant state of flow, in which instead of just one thing, every moment of life as a whole happens effortlessly. Now, the final step. The bubble of mental anguish and frustration finally pops. An insight born of the deepest depths of human consciousness is had. It happens all by itself at unexpected times. It is a very intense experience. Let's take the example of a monk named Tzu Chin who experienced enlightenment while meditating. All the bonds that had hitherto bound my mind and body were dissolved at once, together with every piece of my bones and their flesh. It was like seeing the sun suddenly bursting through the snow-laden clouds. and brightly shining." End quote. During Enlightenment, a very interesting thing happens to a man's psyche. A master named Hakuin compares it to hanging over a bottomless pit. It is a hopeless situation, in which there is no way to go. It is like death itself, all of the faculties of one's psyche. Everything that one has learned in this life, it simply isn't enough to grasp the true meaning of the koan. The apprentice gives up completely. That is when the state of ego death is attained. Let's hear 2 quotes by Zen masters that explain the working of the psyche in that state. "The time will come when all thoughts cease to stir, and there will be no working of consciousness. It is then that all of a sudden you smash your brain to pieces, and for the first time realize that the truth is in your own possession from the very beginning." All of a sudden he finds his mind and body wiped out of existence, together with the koan. This is what is known as letting go of your hold. As you become awakened from the stupor and regain your breath, it is like drinking water and knowing for yourself that it is cold. It will be a joy inexpressible." End quote. All of the build-up, the koan, the mental anguish caused by the spirit of inquiry, the bubble of frustration, growing and growing, it was all for this one moment. The moment in which the apprentice, at a complete loss for words, at a loss for what to think, for what to do next, in a state of utter desperation, that is when one gives up one's hold on reality. The giving up of that hold is synonymous with the giving up of all attachments, and it is the final moment leading to the state of supreme perfect enlightenment. The psychology of Satori is that of desperation. It is one of constant striving by the spirit of inquiry. In life we always seem to be missing something. It is as if humans were of another world, and life on this earth could never truly fulfill us. Enlightenment is when the search for fulfillment reaches its peak. However, the thing one has been looking for cannot possibly be found. It is when one gives up on this world completely. By this world, I do not mean a voluntary giving up on being a part of society, but the giving up of this reality as a whole. This is the letting go of your hold. In that, with the help of short sayings named koans, on which one focuses all their strength, a realization is to be had. In this realization, the world as we knew it dies, but there opens a completely new existence, the true nature of which can never be expressed in words.